They might start.
Welcome everybody, let's go ahead and get started. To start out, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I was just going through all the officers that aren't here, so we do have a few. Actually, our executive board's here. Eric, I saw you back. He's our vice president. Gordon is our secretary, or our treasurer. Bruce is our secretary, sitting over at the table over there. And Steve is running the technology. And then our at-large members that are here, Tom Shambo's here. Dan Cook and Carol Taylor.
Yay.
Yeah, Carol. And seeing as how this is her last meeting as being on the board, I'd like to thank you for all your service. It's been what, 6 years, 7 years? 8 years? She's been on the board for a long time and she's been very helpful. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Okay, now we'll move on to the Fallen Veterans Program, and Dan Cook's going to do that for us.
Good morning. This is always kind of a sad moment, but as you notice, as we came in, the flag was at half mast to say goodbye to 3 of our fallen veteran friends and family members. I'll read the names and their date of service, and Gordon will ring the bell in their honor. James Ash, United States Marine Corps, 1936 to 2023. Jim Dubois, U.S. Air Force, 1933 to 2023. And Eric Milton, U.S. Navy, 1939 to 2023.
Please stand for taps.
Please stand for taps. Please be seated. And I'd like to ask the members or representatives of our fallen vets to please stand. Family members and representatives of our fallen vets, please stand up. We'd like to say thank you for your service and for their service.
Does any family member have anything they want to say about the fallen veteran? Okay. Then we'll move on to the speaker. I had a big long resume on him. So I'll try to keep it short. Our guest speaker is, I forget, I can't read. Our speaker today is, Lieutenant Colonel Kyle Crom, who is in his 20th year of military service. He started when he enlisted with the Colorado National Guard in 2003. And while he was there, he went to the New Mexico Military Institute. And once he graduated from there, he was commissioned as an infantry officer in 2005. In 2009, he was accepted into flight school and completed flight school. After that, he was deployed to Kuwait in support of Operation Freedom. He served several other times overseas. He went to Kosovo twice. He was selected as Brigade Operations and Training Officer at the Western Army National Guard Aviation Training Site. That was in 2021. In 2023, he was promoted and is currently serving as Battalion Commander for Total Army School Systems at the Western Army National Guard Aviation Training Site. That is up here at Pinal Airport. He holds an associate's degree in level arts from New Mexico Military Institute. He holds a bachelor's degree in political science from the University of Colorado. He holds a master's degree of science in Homeland Security and Emergency Management. And he graduated as a distinguished military graduate of the Command and General Staff College Advanced Operations course. Currently lives in Tucson with his wife and 3 children. All
Hey, good morning, everybody. I appreciate the military bio. The joke we say is we wouldn't give it to you if we knew you were going to read it. So I appreciate you. Appreciate you doing the short notes. Thank you for the hospitality and the invite. On behalf of Colonel Pfeiffer, Sergeant Major Blanco, we really like being members of the community. We really appreciate you guys reaching out. It's one of the reasons why I joined the National Guard, and I see the future recruit here. I love it. Well, first off, I just want to start off with, as I come here, one of the things that is near and dear to my heart is all the service you guys did before me. There's a term, I saw it on a cemetery in Hawaii, and it was called a Kage Samide. And if I said it inappropriately, I apologize. Japanese is not my native language, if you couldn't tell. But the purpose behind that term is because of you, I am. And so, again, all your guys' service, the families you raised, the industry you guys are a part of, and your own personal military careers, I wouldn't be here in this great nation if it weren't for your guys' contribution. So it really sinks home to me. I also think that you guys' hospitality is off the charts. Coffee and donuts, I will always show up. So thank you. A little bit about myself, as I understand, this is kind of a free wrap is what we call it. So wrapping with you guys, I'll say I came from a line of military service members. And I think probably a lot of you guys have that. My granddad is still alive. God bless him. He's up in Surprise, Arizona. He was a Korean War vet with his twin brother, and they served obviously in Korea. My other granddad, he has served World War II. And then he got out and he joined the industry, and they were building electronics and avionics. If anybody did Operation Joint Rivet, ISR platforms in the Air Force, he was a part of that. Some of you might have even flown some of those. My dad, he graduated West Point, and then he had 3 boys, and all 3 boys, to their mom's dismay, joined the service. My older brother, he's out in Florida. My younger brother, you take a pic, he's all over the place, but he joined the Navy. So I laugh because I come from an Army career and I see so many Navy vets in Arizona, it's far away from water, and I think there's something there. But long story short, for my career, it's just one of being blessed. I'm an atypical National Guardsman. I grew up in a military family. I decided that being an Army brat was pretty neat, but I wanted to set roots. Best laid plans of mice and men. God had different plans, and as a guardsman, I traveled all over the United States. So Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona. Take your pick. I've been in and around there. You can take a year. I've also deployed EUCOM, CENTCOM. My favorite tour was when I got to go to Jordan as well as Kosovo. The unique thing about Kosovo is they actually like us. So that's kind of neat being there. My father was also in Bosnia and Kosovo. And so it's kind of interesting when we call it the Forever Wars, because I was telling him how Kosovo and Bosnia were when I was there. And he's like, oh yeah, I remember when we were in the tents. And it's like, well, things have changed because of you. I appreciate having a PX. Thanks, Dad. So a little bit about the WATS. Has anybody heard the term WATS before? Okay, so WATS stands for the Western Army National Guard Aviation Training Site. So there are 4 axes, and axes are Army aviation training sites. The axes are responsible for being an extension of what was formerly known as Fort Rucker, and it's now Fort Novosel. And that is basically whatever the current aviation training load for U.S. Army helicopter pilots, if they can't sustain it at Fort Rucker, they offload that to us. At the WATS in the west, the EATS, which is in Pennsylvania, we have the FWATS, which is the fixed wing, and then you have the HATS, which is the high altitude in Colorado. So at the axes, we're primarily responsible for training aircrew members as well as repairmen in our schoolhouses. And so if you're a mechanic and you're going to work on a Black Hawk and you've never previously worked on a Black Hawk, we will train you. If you were a pilot, either from the Navy or the Air Force, and you transferred into the Army, we'll train you in Black Hawk, Lakota here specifically at the WAC, or Chinooks and Mike model Black Hawks at the EATS. And then, of course, the fixed wing is at the fixed wing schoolhouse. It's been a total game changer for my career, just because I was in an operational unit for my first 16 years. And then recently I've come into the WATS, and training up service members to carry on the legacy has been just a true blessing. Never would have thought in a million years that I'd be training people in that capacity, but it's just been really great. And Arizona's been just a wonderful, wonderful home for me and my family. So I'm pretty excited about that. I don't know how much more you guys want to hear about the ads. So I'm going to open it up to Q&A if that's okay. And I'm more than happy to discuss anything with all of you. Yes, sir.
Can you explain a little bit what your day is like?
Sure, absolutely. So I come in with a coffee and everybody tells me what they need me to decide on, and I sit down and I decide things. No, so I apologize. It's fun. So it really depends. So if it's an enlisted class, generally usually the enlisted show up, they report, they do 6:30 breakfast, PT, and then they go to either professional military education, like to be trained as senior non-commissioned officers, or they go to a repair course to work on the aircraft. It kind of just depends on where they're at in the career path. So they show up, they report to the instructors. I'm responsible for all the instructors at the schoolhouse, both non-commissioned and warrant officers. And they'll show up to the class, they'll take a break, they'll go to the hangar, they'll work on the aircraft in the hangar, and then they'll either break for lunch or be cut out for the day, and then they'll come back. And they're either in a classroom or they're in basically a maintenance environment. For the maintenance environment, we have probably about 6 mock-up aircraft. And so if you can just imagine an aircraft that can't be turned on, all these gentlemen and ladies will work on those aircraft, whether it's an engine, whether it's a rotor blade, basically as if you just chop things down and like you'd see it like a Firestone or Michelin tires. All the components are broken off at some point, and we put hands on each part of the aircraft and teach our students how to go through what we call the work packages that Sikorsky or Airbus say, hey, here's how you fix this aircraft. And we just walk nuts to bolts, cradle to grave on how to fix all the components on our helicopters. So that's on the enlisted side of the house. If you're an aviator, so warrant officer or RLO, real life officer, what we call them in the Army. It's a euphemism, it's not a real term, but, they will either report early, get a daily brief, like what the weather is, or start Arizona, it's usually sunny, go have fun. But we'll do the brief, we'll go through any notices to airmen for all the airfields around here. And we'll discuss what we want them to train on for the day. So for example, we can talk Army regulations that they need to be aware of in terms of what constitutes a qualified pilot. For example, if I were to have dental surgery and I was given an anesthetic, I shouldn't be flying that day. So we go through those things because they're being trained to be either a combat crew member or a future instructor of other crew members at the unit. And so they'll come in, they'll get the crew brief is what we're talking about. And then they'll go fly for half the day, and then the other half of the day will be an academic classroom portion. And that's pretty much my day on terms of the schoolhouse side of the house. The other thing that I do that's pretty interesting to me, and it's very unique here at the schoolhouse, is I'll contact either National Guard Bureau in DC, or I'll contact Fort Rucker, now Fort Novosel in Lower Alabama, and we'll discuss what's coming down the pipeline, whether that's material in terms of future vertical lift aircraft, whether it's current programs of instruction that they want us to change up. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but there's a lot of initiative and a lot of push to change from a counterinsurgency mindset into a, probably what you guys are more familiar with, large scale war. And so all those programs coming down, they'll ask us, sometimes, what are your thoughts? Other times they'll be like, we don't care about your thoughts, we want to know what you need from us. And I'll tell them, they'll tell me they don't have the resources, and we go back and forth. But that's pretty much the unique side of my house is when I talk up and out of the schoolhouse, but down and in, that's what this is. Great question. Did I answer? Yes, sir.
I was in the Navy a few years ago.
The status of the warrant officers was a little nebulous.
No one really knew what to think of the warrant officers, where they ranked, what they did. What's the current status of the warrant officer corps?
Was there any warrant officers in the audience right now? Yeah, they never tell me where you go. To be honest with you, sir, that's a great question. I think the Army's still trying to figure it out. The reality is, so when I was in the infantry and I was a former enlisted artillery member, the warrant officers were like first sergeants, sergeant first classes, the most squared away, experienced individual, as senior as possible, and bang, they gave him a commission to be a warrant, and he's acting as the most senior advisor for all things that entailed that profession. In aviation, it's different. It's, whether they like to hear it or not, it's a cost saving measure. It's expensive to have RLOs like the Navy and the Air Force do. But we have more aircraft than either the Navy or the Air Force combined. So the Army has established the Warrant Officer Corps for Army aviation. Their role is senior advisor to all of RLOs such as myself, as well as the subject matter experts. So I'm a maintenance test pilot as well as an instructor pilot. Warrant officers got me to that level, if that makes sense. And then 9 times out of 10, if it's anything aviation related, I'm going to defer to the experience of the warrant officer. The difference is I've got command authority and they don't. But that can change as well. The Army is always kind of picking and choosing what they want to focus on. Does that answer your question?
Kind of.
Yeah, that's kind of how I live as a battalion commander. I'm like, I kind of understand what you guys are up to. I just refer to them as cats. They're cats. They've got personalities. They've got tasks and purpose that they all go about their business. The maintenance guys are their own subculture. The instructor pilots are their subculture. And then you get a warrant officer that's in ordnance or supply. He's got his own subculture. So, sorry, I hope it helps. I'm still navigating it too. Any other questions? Sir.
Thank you for coming and sharing your commitment with us. I just found secretary excited about this stuff. So even though it's the age of Zoom, I get a recording to go far. But my question is, when you started, you said that those, referred to your, Western Army, aviation training site with those that failed being a pilot, is that what you said?
No. Sorry, I apologize. So your question was whether or not warrant officers existed because they failed at becoming a pilot?
Yeah, you said that those that came to your school, were those that didn't make the grade of being a pilot, so they were in training for in other areas of aviation.
No, my apologies for that. Clearly I misspoke. You guys are making me nervous. No, so warrant officers don't become ROs, real life officers. Again, that's just a euphemism. They focus primarily on their skill set of flying, whereas I'm a generalist, right? So if you were to take Lieutenant Colonel Crom and say, hey, we appreciate your service in aviation, but we need you to go operate on behalf of this staff for this general officer. I'm supposed to be able to do that, plan, coordinate resources, command troops, so on and so forth. A warrant officer, his bread and butter is flying a helicopter. And so it's not that they're not competent, because that's the exact opposite. They're the most competent. Like if you want to go fly with somebody, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be one warrant officer.
So basically, that these gals and guys that are being deferred over to you are basically being trained as pilots in other areas of aviation.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you for the clarity.
No worries. Apologies for the misconception. Was there another hand out there? Yes, ma'am.
I think I read in the paper that some of the pilots from Ukraine are being learning how to fly the planes here. Is that correct?
As I understand it, yes. So another interesting aspect of my service over there at the Watts is we have what's called FMS, Foreign Military Sales. And what will happen is, and I don't want to get into all of this, but actually, you guys remember this. Do you guys remember rewind about 2 or 3 years ago when then President Trump met with the Saudi Arabian nation, and it was a really big to-do in all the newspapers and all that other stuff. And it was, hey, we're going to sell a bunch of stuff to Saudi Arabia. That was all through the Defense Security Coordination Agency. And that basically trickles down to me, where I will train foreign national service members. So for Ukraine, because that's a new relationship, to answer your question, yes, we'll train them if it comes down. There's been discussions about whether or not we could facilitate that training. What usually happens is we will sell through industry a platform of some sort, right? Like here's a UH-60 Alpha model that, we flew 20, 30 years ago, or here's a brand new one. And they'll say, yeah, that's what we want. And so we'll give it to them and then we'll go, hey, we've given you this material. Do you need training? And 9 times out of 10, they go, yeah, they can give us the training. And so then we'll say, okay, come on down here. And Fort Notice gets first crack at it. And if they can't do it, they'll say, hey, could one of the asses please train up these incoming foreign military service personnel? So to answer your question, yes. Yes, sir.
What kind of preparation are you guys making for war? I mean, what are you guys looking ahead where we're going to be in combat?
So that's a great question. Well, I say it's a great question because every soldier has to prepare for war in some form or fashion, right? That's part of professional development. It's our professional goals. So there's what we do internally at the schoolhouse, which is pay attention to what we call the operational variables, right? Hey, what's going on in the world through that school. Then there's the actual institutional domain. The institutional domain is what Army Aviation says, hey, here's how we're going to go attack this problem set. So you go, well, what type of problem set? Well, there's the problem set of, hey, in Army Aviation, we are either attacking, we are either providing reconnaissance, or we are moving troops throughout the battlefield. So in the counterinsurgency world, our primary concern was moving troops in a completely uncontested environment, right? Like there were no jets flying out, shooting helicopters out of the sky. So we trained to that. We trained to the fact that we would do large scale air movements. Well, what we're learning now is that a lot of our enemies, it's called near peer, that's the buzzword, near peer, possess technology that can shoot us out of the sky really easily. So Schoolhouse at Fort Rucker has Department of Training and Doctrine, and they go, hey, here's how you have to address that problem set. Then it comes to me and it says, when you train this problem set to all the pilots coming through, train it in this manner, and here's why. And obviously I can't get into too much of those details, but that's how we're preparing for the future fight or conflict or war, whatever the buzzword people want to say. And it's really unique because there's actual a lot of thought that goes into it. And when I was a lot younger, I didn't think there was any thought in it. I thought it was just, hey, this is how we do it. We're just going to keep doing it. And then as you get older, you realize, no, there's actually a very deliberate, time-tested model. Whether or not that becomes palatable to decision makers is a different discussion. And I'm sure you guys have all lived that. Yes, sir.
What is the mortality rate for helicopter pilots in combat?
Well, pretty good because I'm still here. I don't know because it depends on the airframe. I think and I know that they do this. I know that when I say they, United States Army Aviation Center of Excellence, USAC, has a Army Aviation Safety Branch. And that safety branch will go through and they will look at all the accidents or combat losses in the Army. And they'll determine whether or not it was combat related or whether or not it was pilot related. And I couldn't tell you the exact number or ratio, but I can say that 9 times out of 10, it's more due to pilot error. Now, whether or not that's because the enemy has caused that error for that pilot to adjust to, or versus material failure, right? Material failure occurs, but that's not as often. And then you have combat related loss when somebody actually shoots them out of the sky. Us getting shot out of the sky is a very rare incident. 9 times out of 10, it's something that's been induced, and there's a pilot that is responding to an unforeseen circumstance, and unfortunately, it passed. So I think you could Google it, sir. I know there's a website that talks about it. But it's an honest question, right? Like, so if catch-22 and all the other stuff in World War II, I can tell you that we're not at that level yet. But, rule of thumb is what they talk about. If you're in a near-peer conflict with another state actor and we're flying like that, it's combat losses of 1 in 10 is what they're anticipating, and even further. Hopefully that helps. I apologize.
What are the new recruits like coming in? I look at my friends and grandkids, and they are not like what I was when I was 18 years old.
You guys are recording this, right? I gotta be careful how I say. What are the new recruits like coming in? Well, on one hand, and this is important, I'm not training greenhorn recruits. I'm training guys who are new to aviation or new to this skill set, right? Like I can take a mechanic who was a diesel mechanic and I can train him into a aviation mechanic, but he's not new, fresh off the street. But, I don't know, because there's I can be cynical, I can be skeptical, and I think every generation, balks at the generation before them and then kind of gets upset at the generation that's coming behind them. I don't know how you guys feel about me, but I know that's how I feel about the one behind me. But at the same time, we're still defending the nation. And again, I don't think it's at the soldier level that we've experienced what I would call lack of mission focus, if that makes sense. I don't think we're recruiting soldiers with chips on their shoulder who aren't performing what they've been asked to do on behalf of the nation. I think the reality that you guys are probably all aware of is the nation can't decide what it really wants to do. Now, I can't speak like that in uniform, but what I can say is there's a time-tested model for training soldiers and airmen and sailors. Approach may have changed, but the intent and the purpose hasn't. And I can tell you that they have still performed what they've been asked to do. So I'm still proud that the legacy continues. Sir.
Good morning. I presume you're a full-time technician in AER.
I am a full-time AGR currently. I've been both a technician and then I've been a traditional National Guard.
So could you talk a little bit about the difference between those and what your split is on your staff or in the National Guard?
Absolutely. So
Can you repeat the question?
So he asked me, the gentleman asked me, he assumed that I was a full-time service member, which I am. And then he asked me if I was an AGR, which stands for Active Guard Reserveman, or a technician, and the term is military technician. Who here, show of hands, has heard of a military technician? Okay, 2, 3, okay. And then he asked me to explain. So when the American public, and actually I'd say probably most active duty service members think of the Guard Reserves, they think that one weekend out of the month, 2 weeks out of the year. That's a lie. And I say it facetiously. As an aviator in the Guard, I had the exact same aviation minimum and currency requirements as an active duty guy. So I didn't get away with just flying on the weekend and flying 2 weeks out of the year. I was coming in throughout the week. That was when I was a traditional guardsman. As an AGR, Active Guard Reserve, aside from where I'm stationed and the length of time that I'm at that station, it's the same as being active duty, with idiosyncrasies. As a military technician, it's kind of similar to the discussion I said earlier about the Warrant Officer Corps. There was a problem set, and that was we need this to get done, but we can't spend the exact same amount of money to get it done. And so in Army aviation, you have warrant officers versus in Navy and Air Force, all your pilots are RLOs. In the Army, you've got a mix. Well, in the Guard, it's similar. You've got your traditional MDAR, you've got your MDAR, just stands for military duty day. You've got your AGR, which is what I am, and you have a military technician. Well, a military technician is paid off a general schedule scale. So FBI, for example, FBI is a federal agency. They pay, I think, incoming agents GS-10, and again, you can go Google that GS-10, what, $65,000 a year or whatever. We do the same thing in Guard. We have guys that come in and they're GS-5, 7, 8, all the way up to 14. And you're basically just paying them commensurate with the federal pay scale throughout all the other agencies. And there's pros and cons to that. So again, if you take away anything from this conversation, there's 3 types of National Guardsmen, and that's military technician, AGR, or MDAD. He then asked, what is the breakup? In aviation, the breakup's probably so if you got like an 800-man battalion, you're probably going to have 15 to 20 AGRs. And they're acting as kind of the skeleton for the machine throughout the month and the week. Then you get military technicians who are basically doing all of those tasks that have to get done to keep material up. And so I would say you probably got another 30 to 35, maybe up to 50 in an 800-man battalion acting as a military technician for aviation. That's what I can speak to is for aviation. So at the Watts, for example, I've got about 75 AGRs, and there's about 57 technicians, and the technicians are all maintaining the maintenance battalion, and then the other AGRs are doing training, command, or flying. So, yes, sir.
Is there any consideration or planning, et cetera, regarding artificial intelligence and how it could impact the flying? And if so, are they planning for that aspect of the military?
So the question was, is there any artificial intelligence, and is that being taken into consideration for flying? I can tell you, and it's open source, so I'm not divulging anything I shouldn't be divulging, but open source. I say you can Google it, but you can Google it. They have done an unmanned mission, not in combat, but in training, where an aircraft, the UH-60 Black Hawk, took off, flew around, landed, picked up supplies and came back. So that has happened. The question is whether or not it's happening with, me sitting right there flying it versus whether or not I have an algorithm and an artificial intelligence executing that. I haven't seen artificial intelligence executing that. I'm sure somewhere in some deep dark lab, somewhere, somebody's doing that. And if nothing else, to see what the functionality our adversaries could obtain, because that's the real trick, right? Like it's when people talk about the budget and all that other stuff, they forget it. It's like a chess game. You take the first move. So you have to understand what's going to happen with artificial intelligence before somebody else does. Because once they do, you might not get another move. So to your point, I'm pretty sure they're doing it. Whether or not we're going to see it, for example, if you joined up, whether or not you're going to see a helicopter fly and pick you up and fly back, and it's a computer just deciding to pick you up, I don't know. I hope not. To be honest, it takes service out of it, in my opinion. If I ever got hurt on the battlefield, I want somebody else who's a living, breathing human being, American, picking me up. So, yes, sir.
Isn't that pretty much the same as flying a drone?
The way I described the unmanned helicopter?
Yeah.
It is. It is the same as flying a drone. I think the issue becomes, when we talk artificial intelligence, decision making. So for example, most drones today, they provide ISR or attack asset, right? So it's intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance, or an attack platform. And that's a gentleman who's trained, he's flying this drone, he abides by all the rules and regulations of the host nation for aviation purposes. And then he makes a decision, or he asks a commander to make a decision. For example, if there's a high value target, HVT, traveling on a road, and you have a predator drone in the air, and this gentleman is, and Davis Moffin looking with this aircraft, he's provided the opportunity for a commander to make a decision. And that's really important. The issue with the discussion of artificial intelligence is whether or not that artificial intelligence is going to provide a commander an opportunity to make a decision, or whether or not that artificial intelligence can make a decision on behalf of the commander. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's kind of the big discussion, right? And it's the same thing, right? When you talk about making a decision to pick somebody up. It's one thing if you see a battlefield and you've got limited resources in terms of a helicopter picking up people and bringing them home, right? Because they're being triaged, just like in an ER. They're being triaged. Like this guy lost an arm, this guy lost an eye, this guy's dead. So who am I picking up? Somebody's making that decision from the ground all the way to the air group commander who's picking that person up and bringing them to a hospital. What are the ethical implications when the aircraft is being controlled by an artificial intelligence? And now the artificial intelligence is deciding who's being triaged. Does that make sense? That's kind of the whole dilemma. And to your point, sir, I don't know where they're at with it, but I know that they're testing functionality, and I know that they're testing, what the implications are for ground force commanders and the formation in general. And I know that because it's open source. Yes, sir.
Well, thank you for hanging in there with us. These are some great questions, and you are a great public speaker.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Well, my question to you, have you had public affairs training?
I have not. I have not had public affairs training. I can say that I've been blessed by a lot of mentors, and I've been blessed because I said I was an atypical guardian. So I've had lots of opportunities to engage many different types of folks and audiences. And so no public affairs experience. But if anybody's out there watching, I don't mind doing it. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
So when you first started out, you explained your family, that you came from a military family, and how you got into your career as a service member, and what the early part of your career looked like, and where that brought you to now. And you're now, you're family here and it's very comfortable. And, you're in a very comfortable place with the work that you're doing. Do you have any dreams or goals or aspirations to where you want to go in your career from here or?
Ooh, that's a great question. So for those that didn't hear, he said, you started off by explaining how you got to where you're at. And then he asked me, whether or not I had future aspirations and goals. It's an honest question, so I'm gonna answer it honestly. One of the beautiful things about having been a military brat, and one of the beautiful things about having come from a family that has many military members into it, is my goals and my aspirations are probably different than other people who may be either more ambitious or have a set agenda. When I say ambitious, I don't mean that I'm not ambitious. I mean what I value and what I'll do to get there. It's probably different than typical people. And you kind of go, well, what do you mean? Well, my granddads were all enlisted. My father was an officer. So did my older brother who enlisted lack ambition? I'd argue no. Did I lack ambition when I enlisted? I'd argue no. I have an uncle who's a retired general, doing quite well for himself. Not to tell you his name, not because I'm ashamed of it, but it's just, if you ever watch CNN, you've probably seen him. And he had, I would say, a very successful career. So do you define success by achieving more rank? Do you define success by achieving more influence? Do you define success by positional power and authority? Everybody's going to answer that question on their own. So to your point, yes, I have ambitions, but I kind of, again, I said because of you, I am. So it's not really a mirror I'm looking at. It's a window to where I could be. And I hope that when the good Lord keeps me on this earth, I have all my faculties and I can join a club and I can talk to you guys and I can talk to young people and I can carry on similar to how you guys are doing. So that's my ambition. I'm not gonna say I don't care about making 06 colonel or I don't care about making general. It's just that I know that there's enough talented people who didn't, that there's no shame in not doing it. Does that make sense?
Yep, sure.
And again, I'm relatively young, I bet to all you guys, but I'm also old enough to where, I've had friends who have joined the military with me who have died. I've had friends who have joined the military with me and gotten out. I've had friends who have joined the military after I joined, and I'm now retiring them. And one of the things we talk about is it's not so much the accomplishments, it's not so much the positions, but it's the impact you have. And so if I had any ambition, it's that whatever impact that I've had was one worthy of what our forefathers intended. And I know that sounds kind of cliche, but I always like to think back, like, would George Washington look at me? Would, General Grant look at me? Would General Westmoreland look at me and say, he's a soldier? He's an officer. He's done everything and he's doing everything that we expected and that we went through. And that might be a little bit more different than I think some people's mindsets are, but that's just kind of how I, Kyle Crom, process that stuff. Sorry, I probably took all the time.
Very interesting.
Okay, I'll step aside from the podium. If anybody has any other questions, I thank you for your time and yeah, welcome.
Appreciate it. My pleasure. Thank you all. I appreciate all of you. Okay, Gordon, you're up.
Another tough act to follow. This is the report, treasurer's report ending November the 30th. We had a starting balance of $3,565.51. We had deposits on the 1st of November, one for $1,074. $1,000 was from Roger Daggett for the sale of 2 homes. And we live on that. And the other was $74 out of the can that last day. We had, another one on the first for $552, which were tickets for the veterans potluck. And on the 22nd, Tim Walter came to my house and gave me another $500 check for a commission on a sale he did. That made it $2,126 in deposits I made for the month. For expenses, I had a $50.66 deposit for a reimbursement to Dick 2 for goods that he bought for the barbecue potluck. $50 expense for Sunflower Cat Club, our membership into that. Tom Shambo and I went to Costco and spent $296 for Patriots Pantry. Got it all back, loaded it into Dan's truck that day. He slept it off. We made a $1,561 donation to Mr. Morales at the DAB. Thank you again, David. That was $1,000 from us and $561 from sale of tickets from the potluck. And $33 to Don Seymour for reimbursement of postage. I think it was for the plaque things that he mails back and forth. That ended with a closing balance of $3,700.70. That's it. Questions? And thanks to the scouts for being here today.
Okay, we'll move on to, go ahead.
I have a question, wondering if you could come up with the amount that this club is donating through the year for causes that we've supported. And don't need it today, obviously, but I think it would be interesting to see the amount of money that this club has donated to other groups.
Yes, and you can see that on our website. We actually have on our website a page that shows our donations since 2018, I believe it is. And it gives each year breakdown, so you can see it that way as well. But yeah, we'll bring that to the next meeting.
I have it now if you want to.
Okay, go ahead.
2 minutes.
Go ahead.
Thank you for the interest. This is for 2023. We donated $4,800 to the honor flight for 3 flights. $500 to Missing in America, which is where they come to the Marana Cemetery and bury 20, 30 vets at a time who families didn't make it to them. $2,550 to the DAB. $1,000 to Old Pueblo, which is an organization downtown that helps housing with vets. $1,000 to VA Volunteer Services. $1,200 to Camp Corral, which is a summertime project that we put veterans get into camp for the year. $1,000 to the Tucson Veterans Center. $600 to the Marine Memorial. And correct me, but I think it might have been for the Marines who died at the Osprey crash at the Marana Field. It was an anniversary of it. $500 to VA homeless. $250 to Trot, which they're the ladies who have the therapy horse program that vets can attend for free. $900 to the State Veterans Cemetery, and the $900 that came up was, that's what they're telling us a spouse burial would be. $300 to the Quilters Club. We donated money or materials to be turned into things for the vets. That's it.
What's the total?
I can't count that high. I didn't do a total. Yeah, it's on the website.
Also shows it's very significant what this club is doing with other groups.
No doubt about it.
That's roughly 9,000.
And I might add, most of that is from our realtors. That, you know, without them, we would really have to look harder into our pockets. Probably should anyhow.
Okay, and with that, I'd like to have Mr. Whitechurch come up and. Okay. Okay, hi. Okay, Andrew with the Boy Scouts. Because of what they did for us at the Veterans Day ceremony, we authorized $500 to the Boy Scout troop for that.
Yeah, sure. So I'd like to thank everybody for this generous donation to our scout troop. This will go to all the scouts in our troop. This will help fund summer camps, troop uniforms, patches, and Eagle Scout projects. So thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. The presentation was wonderful. Okay, next thing we're looking for, Wreaths Across America is happening on December 16th out at the Veterans Cemetery here in Marana. And we need some volunteers. First of all, we need 5 volunteers that will just help generally out there on the 16th. Also, we're looking for 2 Marines who would be setting the wreath for the presentation out there for the Marine Corps. We've got most of the other services covered. We need 2 Marines, and we need 2 Coast Guardsmen, which I don't think we even have 2 in our club. But so if anybody would like to take part in that, please let me know, because we need somebody to step up and do that for us.
What's going on?
Well, we asked that the volunteers be out there. We're asking at 8 o'clock, but we'll take even as late as 8:30 to get out there. I know some of us don't get up that early. So anyway, what you would be doing, they have somebody to cover parking, they have somebody to cover putting up chairs and such like that. Mainly what we're asking for is somebody to assist with we have the Marana cheerleaders are coming out, and the 4-H is coming out. And so they're both going to be providing youth, and we're going to try to use it as a training program for them. So that's part of Wreaths Across America, is training the youth about service and what this is all about, and how to lay a wreath, how to show respect, that type of thing. So what you would be doing is you'd be supporting one of the youth and handing out wreaths to people to lay on the headstones. So that's what we're asking for. That's all I got for old business. Under new business, we're looking for, and I put this out in the invitation when we sent it out, we're looking for gently used winter clothing for homeless veterans. This will be going down to the VA hospital for homeless veterans. So if you have a winter coat you're not using anymore because you're in Arizona now, or more hats, gloves, things like that, please bring them over. Dan will take them down to the hospital for donation when he goes down. So if you have anything like that, bring it over. You can just put it back with the Patriots Pantry stuff, and we'll pick it up. Next thing coming up is I just was contacted by what's his name? Mr. Hamill from Rusted Spurs. We are doing that presentation again. He's doing 2 concerts for us. And that will be January 30th. Bruce is setting up ticket sales for it. We're also going to have ticket sales online for it. So, and if you haven't been to our new website, go take a look. It's all new. Looks a little different. We're trying, but it also, it's a little fresher looking and it will show up better on your mobile phones, your iPads and tablets. It looks better on there. So a lot easier to use. So go take a look at that. And I believe that's, also, Juan Siscamati got us a fancy flag. So we're going to get this set up so we can have it here for our meetings. So he got that for us. Is there anything for the other cause? Go ahead.
I have a question. Why don't we have a POW with MIA flag there?
I do not know.
I think it would be a good idea to get one and have it on display for our meetings.
Can go.
We're just flying on them.
Yeah, I know, but
MIA, you're the MIA.
good idea.
I'll look into that and see if we can get one.
Thank you.
Anything else? Go ahead, Dave.
As a recipient of donations, let me tell you, we are careful to spend every dime very carefully. I have been commander of Scout Corps for 3 years. In the 3-year span, chapter 2 got closed, chapter 18 got closed. This year, we were nominated chapter of the year for the state of Arizona. So to tell you the truth, the reason we got it, because we're a family. I operate chapter 4 as a family. I have told all the 15 service officers, family first, DAV second. If you have a problem, we'll take care of it and come and do the paperwork. I don't want you to mess up the paperwork. We'll take care of the family. And every penny that you have given us has been for a very good cause. The other thing is, we just signed a contract for 5 years. So we're gonna be in the same location for the next 5 years. And I can't thank you enough for every donation. Like I said, we use it very carefully. Thank you.
Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I'd like to say a couple of things. First of all, Colonel Crom has supported our cemetery. We asked for volunteers from his watch unit, and he supplied 20 leaders to come out, work traffic, do those kind of things for us. We invited him out to help us during Reach Across America. Another great volunteer. I asked him to come here today. He showed up. They really are involved in the community, so he does a great job at that. The thing that I wanted to talk about, you talked about the $900 donation. We have two events happening. One is that when spouse passes to be buried with their veteran, they pay a fee for that, and it's about $870, almost $900. So we had a veteran's wife come in and say, "I don't want that to happen. I would prefer that they get buried for free, just like their spouse." So they recommended that we start a funding process for that. They're going to contribute to it. We ask you to think about that. If you'd like to help a veteran's spouse be buried out there and you can afford it, we would appreciate it. The second thing that's going to happen, probably in January, is we now can bury National Guard and Reserve out there. However, they're going to ask a fee for that, and it's not decided yet. But it's going to be close to $5,000 for them to be buried, which sounds like a lot of money. And it is in my case, but it is a lot less than being buried in private services. So that's 2 funds that we're opening up. If you'd like to contribute to either one of those, you can send a check and a letter to the foundation. We'll make sure they get into the right funds and help the right people.
Thank you, Tom. Go ahead, Bruce.
We will go to make some mention of, putting a box in the lobby for jackets and blankets.
Yes,
Ask the gentleman, should.
yes, for the,
All the some,
yeah, well, one of the things we are going to do with, the donations for the clothing, we're gonna put a separate box back in the corner by the Patriots Pantry for that. But right now, you can just set it back there, or you can set it on the table over here for today. We'll collect all of that. But in the near future, there's going to be a box out there where you can put your coats, jackets, gloves, hats, whatever you have for the homeless. If you could put that out there, we'll collect it all. Dan will take it down. Or Tom will take it down. They both go down weekly, so it can all be taken down there. He doesn't want to be recognized in the corner. Dennis goes down as well. Okay, anything else for good of the cause? Go ahead, Dan.
Real quick, I just want to say thanks to everybody that participated in the Veterans Day celebration. It really turned out to be a great event. And the scouts here, bailed us out. I called and we've traditionally had the Marine Corps League do their gun salute and the flag ceremony, and they couldn't do it this year. So, if the Marines can't do it, you call the Boy Scouts. And the Boy Scouts are right there, 2130, and Bob White Church and Andrew. I went down to see their troop meeting. The guys are there, and they even have a girl group. And I just want to say thanks again to the scouts and also to the pickleball club who did the decorations and the hosting of the donuts. So all together, the whole community came together, and just thanks so much for your support. And Mr. President, you've done good.
Thank you, Dan. Anything else for good of the cause? Okay, then we are adjourned.
Good to see you. Yeah.